this is what y'all need to pay attention for your image assignment today. The next few things.
Okay, so 4-chamber here. You can tell what I was doing. I'm adjusting my image before I even take it. I'm just trying to fine tune it, whether that be you adjust your frequency, you adjust your gain. Just be mindful of those little tweaks that you have to do, because not every time will you just be able to put the probe down and it just be the perfect image. Sometimes you do have to make changes. So here is your 4-chamber. In your protocol, it will tell you to, where am I? To increase the field of depth. That's what me and Ms. Flack were talking about. Not sure if this will be part of your practical, just know it's part of your protocol. Very similar to what we did in Parasternal Long. We're increasing our depth, looking for any abnormal fluid like pleural, pericardial effusion, any mass that might be hanging off of the atria. So you would just clip store to increase depth, and then you're going to bring it back in. So you'll kind of keep it at your normal depth here. So then we would clip store here as well. You're going to start, sorry, wrong button. Oh no, wrong button. We're going to put color over the mitral valve here. There's really, it's hard because there's not like a 100% right or wrong. As long as you're not doing this, you're not doing this, you just want to make sure that your focus is over that mitral valve.
Yeah, you want to see a little bit on both sides. I mean, more so on the atrial side, but just don't have a mega huge box and you'll be good.
So here we're going to clip store color. So very similar, I've said this over and over. A lot of times with echo, with vascular, you're going to clip store or still image 2D colored Doppler. So if you're going to do a pulse wave Doppler, you're going to already have your color on. So just to save you steps, don't constantly cut off color. You're going to keep that on when you do your Doppler. So here we're going to place our cursor at the mitral valve leaflet tips. We're going to pulse wave here. So see how we can't see E, the peak, the point of E? I've got to bring my baseline down some. Okay. So this also must go in your calcs package. If I can find where I'm at. Okay. This machine's sticky. No, it's not good. Is it this one? So E, so early diastole, think of where we are. You can actually see these crosshairs here. Oh, let me do my pointer at the same time. No. So early diastole, so there's your E. Where's this?
It might be under peak E, peak A, maybe.
Separate? I was thinking this would let
wait,
me.
it's the next one up. Mitral valve E, D.
Oh, I see. Okay, I'm on the wrong one. Gotcha.
If I want y'all to know that when you do your practical exam, if you're really struggling trying to find something for the packages, don't waste your time trying to find it if you're like sweating and you're like, I'm running out of time. As long as you put some calipers on there, we'll at least give you most of your credit for it. We'd much rather it be plugged in under the package, but just know that if you put a caliper on there, worst case, you'll get partial credit.
Because this is what is going to go in your report page for your cardiologist. So E, and then we're going to draw your decel time down. So we're just going to travel down this E wave to the baseline. We're going to set our cursor, and then there's A. So A should be an end diastole. So early, E, slow, A. If you have a hard time trying to figure out, y'all see me do this all the time, I'm covering where diastole essentially is. So if you're not really sure, backtrack where your QRS is. If you know that's A, then the E is the first one. Just be mindful of your EKG. It's very important because some people are gonna want to measure a little E and a big A, but look where it's in the wrong part of your cardiac cycle. You'll see that too. Gotta be real careful with that. So once we've done pulse wave, we can do continuous wave. Hold on, I'm getting here in a minute. Make sure I haven't moved because I think I have. Okay, so continuous wave. I'm gonna bring my scale down. Should bring it back over. So you don't have them doing too much. So I'm gonna increase my scale a little bit. Because what we are looking for here is mitral regurg. Here we are. So our focus is going to be more below the baseline. I didn't see any in color, so I don't anticipate I'm gonna find any, during continuous wave. So we would be looking here, so if this is diastole, this is when your mitral valve is open, you would be looking during systole. Your MR jet would be somewhere in here if she had one, but she does not. If she were to have one, if you had a patient, you would do like an MR Vmax. You would put a cursor, a point to show that MR. In your protocol, it says for MS, trace, mitral, VTI. Nobody here is gonna have mitral stenosis. But if you came into clinic and you had to trace that, or if you saw that in clinic, what they mean by that is they are tracing the E and the A, they are tracing this in continuous wave. So it's your MV VTI. All they're doing is tracing because they're looking for like a pressure gradient of how bad the stenosis is, and it'll also help them calculate an area. But generally just know that's what they're looking for. When it says for MS, this is what they're looking for in continuous wave. You would trace it MV VTI. You don't have to do that here, just FYI. All right, continuous, done that. Now, tissue Doppler. Where? Okay, so tissue Doppler here. So your cursor, I usually start medial or septal. That's just generally where I start. You want to make sure your cursor's there within the tissue, right at the mitral valve annulus. Can I do this correct? This one always is silly to me. Okay. You've got to make sure your tissue Doppler is on. If you don't, you're trying to pick up like movement of like blood flow. That's not what we're focusing on here. So this is very similar to your E and your A, so your mitral valve inflow, but it's reversed. You still have to look at your EKG to know where E and A is. You may have a tall E, little a in your mitral valve inflow with pulse wave, but when you do your tissue Doppler, it may be reversed. So you've got to know where you are during your heart cycle. So a lot of times I just say find your QRS and kind of backtrack. Just know where diastole is. So here you would measure, wrong button. Here we go. I'm gonna find, is it here? I always forget where tissue Doppler is on this one. Here, maybe here it is. So E would be here. Some of your machines, I know the Philips, and I can't remember the GE, it'll specifically say septal or medial. That's where your E point will go under, and then also your lateral. I think I clicked the wrong thing. Don't look at that. It should just be E. There we go. Little E, 1 point. And then you're gonna slide over here to the lateral. If you don't move, you can generally update your pulse wave cursor. That's why I recommend you keep your hand on the probe, on the patient at all times, so you're not trying to scramble and find your window again. So simply I updated and moved from medial all the way back over to lateral. And update again. So very similar, you're gonna measure your E point here. Oh, well, you would measure your E here. And so this one on your protocol might be a little different. I don't know if we've gone over this, but you will definitely see it in clinic. So this is just gonna be something, you can actually see 2 sets of pulmonary veins here. That's pretty. A lot of clinical sites, I recommend you put your color on. What you're looking for is the pulmonary venous inflow coming into the left atrium, so you can see the red coming into the left atrium. A lot of folks will measure here at, I believe this is the right upper. Don't hold me to that.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Okay, so you're gonna pulse wave the your pulmonary vein, your pulmonary venous flow here. That's pretty. So really what you look for, you could just simply take this image. Just know where it's at, take this image. But this goes along with your EKG as well. Your clinical sites are gonna measure this, if I can find where it's at. Here it is. Oh no, hold on, backtrack. Pulmonary veins. Your clinical sites are gonna measure, I think this is it. So your S wave, which is in systole, your D, which is in diastole. So as long as you know where you are in your heart cycle, you will definitely see that, and they will even do an A reversal. Just, you don't have to do that here. Just know that you're going to see them measure this during in clinic. Alright, so now we're going to go to 5 chamber. So what I recommend, nope, I scratched that. We got to go to tricuspid valve. So we're going to come over here and do color over your tricuspid valve. You can zoom in if you feel like you can see it better. I generally have mine zoomed in. You don't necessarily have to, but that's how I do mine. You can see a little bit of our tricuspid regurg there. You can see the blue jet coming back into the right atrium. So you're going to clip store here, and then you're also going to do continuous wave. We can't really see too much of that tricuspid regurg. You can barely get a hint or a whiff of it here. If that's the case, sometimes I don't even measure it. I don't anticipate y'all will measure it if this is all you're seeing, because you can't see it in every cycle. So it's just because it's so minimal.
Yeah, cardiologist's gonna look at that and say, yeah, that's nothing.
Nothing,
So
yes.
it's not causing a big issue for the patient.
Because I feel like 99.9% of the patients that I scan have tricuspid regurg. I have tricuspid regurg. So it's a very common thing. It's just usually don't have any problems with it. So when we think about tricuspid valve, say you get a really good 2D image. If you don't have a good image, I'm just gonna try to mess it up. If you feel like you don't have a good image of your tricuspid valve, that's kind of a 2. No. Say this is your 4. This is the best 4 you can get. If you don't really see your right side or your tricuspid valve, make sure you go in and take an image so that we know that we're looking at. So I would clip store here, color, then continuous wave. If I felt like my 4 chamber did not show the right side of the heart very well, make sure you do. Kind of focus on that right side. So we're going to move on to 5. Go back and get a good 4. That's what I recommend. That's kind of like your home. Go back home. Get to a 4 chamber, and you're going to angle up. That's it. So here you can see aortic valve. On her, I do kind of lose the left atrium. That's fine. Her aortic valve, her 5 chamber, it's lined up beautifully. I don't get so caught up that you're losing chambers, because I know it's a 5 chamber, but if you lose that left atrium, that's fine. So you're going to clip store a 5 chamber. You're going to put color here. You're going to clip store. I generally do pulse wave first. You can do continue. It doesn't matter as long as you include both. So pulse wave here, I'm going to put it right before the valve, so in the LVOT area, because that's what we're going to be measuring. So pulse wave, LVOT. So then you've got to put that in. This to me is one of the most important. You've got to have this in a CALPS package. Every machine will have this. This is where you trace. So LVOT, VTI, some of the machines will say LVOT trace. VTI and trace mean the same thing. So you're going to start at the baseline, and you're just going to trace this flow here up to the valve closure. So you can tell here, this bright white line, that's the aortic valve closing. So you know once you've gone here, you're done. And you can kind of see where we are here, where I started it. We're at the QRS. We're at the very end of QRS, so this is beginning of systole. So be mindful where you are, because you're not going to trace this. You got to be careful. You're not going to be tracing this. Just make sure you're in the right part of the heart cycle. Color. So see, I didn't move, my hand didn't move, I stayed on the patient, so I'm going to go directly to continuous wave. Oh, my bad. I said it was. So here we're going to trace. I'll press the right button eventually today. We are going to go and trace AVVTI. When you trace your LVOT VTI, your AV VTI, remember those we just did, those are both in 5 chamber, and you include your LVOT diameter, like we did in our peristernal lung, that's going to give you an aortic valve area. That's what you want. You've got to have those 3. You will do that, I would say, on every patient that you do in clinic. So here, AV VTI or AV trace, you're tracing the blood flow as it's going through the aortic valve.
like we talked about in class, that LVOT measurement, she's talking about diameter and that pulse wave LVOT, that's what was gonna give us all of our cardiac output, stroke volume, all that good stuff.
If you had a patient that had aortic insufficiency, it's gonna be very similar to how you would see it in your, like how we Dopplered our pulmonic valve. It would be during diastole. It would be somewhere in this part of the heart cycle that she doesn't have any to measure. So if you're catching a slope in clinic and you see a weird slope, looks like a slide going down, they probably have aortic insufficiency. Sometimes you'll note here, you'll kind of get what looks like an E and an A. Sometimes you're just kind of picking up a little bit of that mitral valve flow. So this is not aortic insufficiency. I am missing something. I missed IVRT. Okay, so in a 5-chamber, I think in your protocol, pretty sure it is, I'm gonna go back. When you pulse wave, when you pulse wave your mitral valve, it has here to measure IVRT. I don't know if y'all noticed that in your protocol. I generally measure it during aortic valve. I think as long as you get your cursor in the general area, you could do it in 4 or 5. I recommend moving your pulse wave cursor kind of in between your mitral valve and your aortic valve. So I'm just gonna kind of put it in between here. What you're looking for is when the aortic valve closes and before the mitral valve opens. So that's your isovolumic relaxation time, I believe I said that right. So your IVRT. You'll just measure it here. A lot of times you will have that somewhere, I don't know where it's at on here. But I don't think that's part of y'all's practical.
It's not on the practical, but it is the protocol under mitral valve, under apical 4-chamber. After you did the E and the A wave and the decel time, that's where the IVRT is right after that.
So generally, like I said, where I work, I do it during 5, but I've definitely seen it done there too. So as long as you're kind of in an LVOT, in between like a mitral valve, LVOT, you can really see it anywhere as long as your cursor's kind of in that general area. So what I recommend is from a 5, go back to a 4. That's you home. Go back home. So go to a 4, and for us to go to a 2-chamber, you're going to turn your index. So I'm going to point it then towards her left shoulder. Very subtle. So from a 4 to a 2. Beautiful. So,
sometimes you don't have to go that far. Sometimes you'll get a 2 before you get all the way to that shoulder.
So just watch your screen. Don't try to hyperfixate on where your index is, because it's not going to be 100% like that every time. But generally, just watch how your screen as you turn. I know a lot of times you want to reach over and do a quick turn, but just watch your screen. So here would be a 2. You're going to do a clip store here. You're also going to put color across your mitral valve. I do that every time. I do it every time. So this is your left atrial appendage here, and this is, I believe, your left upper pulmonary vein.
Yes.
I believe. Okay, I'm like, oh. So this is very, to me, when I see these two, I know I'm in a good 2. And even so, I actually think you can see a portion of your coronary sinus. Sometimes that's very common to see when I turn to a 2. A lot of times when I see this, I know I'm kind of where I need to be. You can see, you're such a photogenic skin, you can see yours in 4, especially your left atrial appendage. This stands out to me most when you're in a 2-chamber view. So this is your 2-chamber. You're going to clip store. You're going to put color on here. You're going to clip store again. And that's really it. In clinic, when you get out and about and you start scanning and you see a significant mitral valve like regurg or insufficiency jet, you can Doppler here. Sometimes I do this. It's not part of your protocol. It may not be part of your protocol where you will eventually work. But if you can see a mitral regurg jet better here than you can before, put a continuous wave Doppler. It's not going to hurt anything if you can see it better. So from a 2,